You're watching the 6 p.m. newscast on Spectrum Television. On our top stories, the sales and consumption of counterfeit liquor is becoming increasingly prevalent in Cameroon. How can one differentiate fake wine or fake from original wine or whiskey is a question even those engaged in the business are unable to disclose. An investigation continue at the Littoral Judicial Police following the murder of a hotel manager on Sunday, breaking Monday morning in a Bona prison neighborhood in the Douala 1 municipality. Our news team was at the murder scene this morning to get first-hand information from some of the close collaborators of the disease. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for joining us on another edition of the 6 p.m. newscast on Spectrum Television. We'll begin right away in health. Cameroon has begun sizing up its capacity to monitor the rise in COVID-19 cases on the national territory, as travelers will have to adapt to the new modalities spelled out by the Ministry of Public Health. One of them is a personal identification via WhatsApp to decongest thirst centers. Details with Josephine Binzi.
With the rise in the number of COVID-19 cases on the national territory, the Minister of Public Health, Manauda Malashi, has set certain modalities for travelers in need of COVID-19 tests. Firstly, every traveler has to be registered, which entails them sending a WhatsApp message indicating their names, personal information, and when they are traveling. Secondly, a confirmation message will be sent him 48 hours before his journey. This will equally include the venue for their tests, as their national IDs and air tickets will be needed the day for the tests. Test results will thereafter be presented via WhatsApp with a possible delayance of 16 to 36 hours to avoid congestion. This is also to enable them print the test results at their convenience in order not to saturate the test sites. With the recent outing of the Minister of Public Health on the non-necessity of COVID vaccines on the national territory, extreme vetting and rigorous testing is what the health sector has embarked on to monitor the infection rates in Cameroon.
And on to something else, the sales and consumption of counterfeit liquor is becoming increasingly prevalent in Cameroon. How can one differentiate fake from original wine or whiskey is a question even those engaged in the business are unable to disclose. Details in the following report. Identifying original wines and hot drinks amid the numerous fake drinks circulating in the Cameroon markets appears to be relatively impossible. Going downtown Douala, inhabitants engaged in the sales of liquor seems not to be able to distinguish good wines or whiskey from counterfeit.
GBS.
To them, purchasing from a favorite provider may count. To avoid buying fake drinks, we buy directly from importers who have license.
Non, aujourd'hui, comme dans tous les secteurs d'activité, il y a
just like in all sectors, there are bad people who produce fake products just to tarnish our own sector.
Les faux produits pour ternir notre image, pour ternir notre secteur.
To some consumers, fake whiskey has an immediate drunken effect.
Quand j'achète un whisky pour savoir s'il est bon, je le constate quand il est.
I can identify fake whiskey when it's soft. When it's not too harsh, then I know it's good for consumption. But when it's crude, I just know it's dangerous for my health.
Donc voilà comment il distingue un peu.
S'il y a le faux, c'est que moi régulièrement avant de payer le vin, je paye.
I buy my wine from someone I know, because when you know someone who sells wine, he can't sell a fake one to you. Whereas when you are not sure of your provider, that's when you can be a victim.
On ne peut pas facilement te donner un mauvais vin. Donc c'est un peu.
However, Cameroonians have been called upon to be vigilant of the kind of liquor they consume, as it has a deteriorating health effect. The sales of fraudulent liquor is on a rise in Cameroon, with the government detecting counterfeiters of the dangerous product. Rompoint Bonabasam is experiencing one of its worst moments as heaps of bottles have been cleared from drainages, but Cameroon's hygiene company Zakam has spared no effort to clear the waste. Our reporter Joseph Ibinzi with more.
As the rains have begun announcing their presence in some parts of Douala, inhabitants at Rompoint Bonabasem experience a bogey of abandoned bottles blocking bridges and drainages around them. This is a real problem, but what are we going to do? Normally at this hour, they were supposed to have cleared it, but Izakam has done nothing. We sell here and it disturbs us. Inhabitants explain the pile of dirt around them is by reason of abandoned refuse by Izakam. Thus, they suffer the effect of waste from their locality and other neighborhoods. It's dirt that comes from many other neighborhoods and from all over. It passes here and falls that way, and we organize ourselves to clean the drainages. This effort of clearing bottles was a desperate attempt to inhibit water from being stagnant each time it rains. As you see the mud, water was everywhere and it was too much. In fact, we live in water. Even when the drainage was built, water blocked every other area. The difficulties are for a long run due to the necessity for a bridge and not drainage systems. We needed a bridge here and not a drainage. And what's there cannot contain us. That's what causes all the dirt. Inhabitants are, however, mobilized to empty the drainages to enable the environment be hygienically habitable.
And now onto our SAT page. Investigations continue at the Littoral Judicial Police following the murder of a hotel manager on Sunday, breaking Monday morning in the Bona Prison neighborhood in the Douala 1 municipality. Our news team was at the murder scene this morning to get first-hand information from some close collaborators of the disease. Details in the following report.
It is a sight of dismay in this residence composed of furnished apartments in Bona Prison, a neighborhood in the Douala 1 municipality. Here, the trauma is still very fresh in the minds after the murder of the manager of this residence on Sunday night, breaking Monday, by unidentified individuals. Everything was quiet and in disorder. Normally, when I get to the residence, I go see the clients to pay in their deposits. I went upstairs and came back and walked towards his corridor because usually, when he hears my footsteps, he always comes out and tells me on the situation at hand. I walked towards his corridor and saw lights, and later on, I saw some legs spread out on the floor. I continued moving and noticed blood all over the floor. Immediately, I started screaming. That's when a client came outside and asked me to sit down and stop shouting, that it's not good in my condition since I am pregnant. I still stretched my head towards his window and noticed everything was upside down and scattered all over the floor. They broke in and took away some documents, and they also searched inside the store where everything there was also scattered. I also At the moment, the author of this devilish act is not yet known. Nonetheless, the identity of the last person to have had launched with him before his demise is known.
De la résidence hôtelière
There was a former worker of the residence who spoke with him yesterday at about 11:30 p.m. He was having lunch. He left his lunch and later he received another call at about 1 a.m. in the night. And he told his caller he was eating. He even described the food he was eating. And immediately we were able to acquire other information about the name of the stranger that had lunch with him. We got his name as William of Ethiopian nationality.
Il s'appellerait un certain William, si nos informations sont exactes. De nationalité éthiopienne.
In the meantime, the office of the deceased has been sealed by the judicial police while awaiting the results of the investigation.
Stay on our South page, our reporter Christe Asek-Swele paints a portrait of Bernal Njonga, the 66-year-old famous agricultural engineer, unionist and politician who died in France on Sunday, February 21, 2021 after suffering from an illness, her report.
Je vois les avantages que les produits qui viennent de l'extérieur ont sur la capacité de production locale. Il y a de quoi un peu s'inquiéter sur le rôle du multilatéralisme dans notre développement.
He lives without realizing his political project. Bernal Njonga wanted to believe in Cameroon, just like the name of his political party, Croire au Cameroun. According to him, it was worthy to dare together to get there. He considered that he had nothing more to prove as a civil society. To him, it was time to conquer all, or better still, part of the decision-making power to directly drive the change he had been advocating for over 30 years as he stood out in the field of citizen struggles. The ban on the importation of frozen chicken into Cameroon since 2006 is one of the brilliant victories which he achieved. Bernal Njonga, who was the founder of the Support Service for Local Development Initiative SIDE and the Citizen Association for the Defense of Collective Interest, ASTIC, spelled out that the campaign against imported frozen chicken was to protect the production of domestic poultry. The echo of the success still resonates today, as through it, thousands of families have recovered income from poultry farming, and the national consumption of local chicken has boosted its production. Njonga believed that it was possible to transform Cameroon in 4 years through agriculture. The impact of his actions on the development of the agricultural community led the journal Jeune Afrique to devote an article to him in 2019 in a special feature entitled The 50 Personalities Who Make Cameroon. Bernal Njonga was an activist with anti-globalization sympathies, which made him the soul of Cameroonian civil society. His path to protest inevitably led him to battlefields where globalized capitalism is attacked. In 2016, Bernal Njonga was the first to prepare for the presidential elections. He released his campaign book in both French and English with gadgets of his campaigns all printed abroad. He was set for the election. Alas, everything fell into water when nature decided otherwise. Then again, he prepared for the 2020 legislative elections, but couldn't, as his illness got the better part of him. Njonga couldn't conquer even part of this famous decision-making power to showcase a model of agricultural transformation in the Mungo division. It is said that when the body decides to stop, there's no way one can change that. The agricultural engineer and executive director of SIDE, president of ASTIC, publisher of the news daily The Farmer's Voice, as well as chairperson of the political party Croire au Cameroun, CRAC in its French acronym, Bernal Njonga's race finally stopped on February 21, 2020, despite the announcement of his return to several people. He hailed from Bangwa in the western region of Cameroon and leaves behind a widow and several orphans, as well as a host of well-wishers to mourn him.
And now may his soul rest in a perfect peace. And on to our international page, Nigeria's reported rapes tripled during COVID-19 pandemic to a few thousand. But the UN Children's Fund says 1 in 4 girls have been victims of sexual violence, meaning countless thousands of rapes are going unreported due to stigma. More with the VOA.
22-year-old student Angela Felix, not her real name, says her cousin raped her during last year's pandemic lockdown. Too ashamed to tell her family or police, she instead considered suicide until she stumbled onto a mobile application that probably saved her life.
What got my attention with the app was the fact that I don't need to be in touch with the person before stating my case or getting help. So I actually decided to try that. And then I downloaded the app, I stated my case, and you can imagine, like, immediately I got help.
The Smart RR application, launched in October, removes the stigma of reporting rape in person and helps survivors to get counseling and support, says creator Diruk Samuel.
Simply kind of solving the issue of stigma, because you can report to a service provider and you can be in contact with the service provider with necessarily, without nobody knowing that you've asked for help from someone except you, the service provider, and perhaps the perpetrator that knows what happened. So with that, it increases reporting.
The UN Children's Fund UNICEF says 1 in 4 Nigerian girls and women have been victims of sexual violence. But only a few thousand rapes are reported each year across the whole of Nigeria, a country of more than 200 million people, meaning countless thousands of rapes going unreported. That's shackling the fight against rapists, say activists who hope the Smart RR can help.
There are so many referral channels, but we discovered that the Smart RR is easier. Guiding principles are inclusive. The need for confidentiality is there. So you can't even use it without the consent of the survivors.
While better reporting should help, critics say Nigeria's legal system still fails most rape survivors.
The issue of conviction is a big issue, and it's a big step for us. If we can have a conviction, it will serve as deterrent to others. That will minimize the cases of rape.
Despite the jump in reported rapes during the pandemic, Nigeria's National Police Force said last year there were only 103 convictions nationwide. Percy Daba.
Report brings us to the end of the 6 p.m. newscast on Spectrum Television. Wishing you a blessed day in the company of our programs. Good night.